Good evening, everybody. My name is John Santucci. Call me Tooch. It's the Stream Team show. I got Sarah and Aaron with me, and we're going to talk a little Wheel of Time, episode 5. What you watching? How's it going for you? Tonight is December 5th, 2021. And we have finished up watching Wheel of Time, episode 5. We've got people who taking your questions in the chat room. And Sarah, how's it going tonight? What are you watching new?
Still a lot of stuff I can't talk about. And getting into some big stuff that I can't talk about. But I did want to shout out, there is a new stand-up special from Chris Gethard, who you might know from the Chris Gethard Show, which did the very famous Dumpster episode, truly one of the best hours of television ever. Or the Beautiful Anonymous podcast. He has a stand-up special on Amazon Prime called Half My Life. And it's really good. It's a little bit unusual in that instead of just filming in one, like usually when you tape a stand-up special, they perform 3 or 4 nights in one venue and they tape it each night and they cut together the best reactions and versions of the jokes and stuff. And that's the special. He did his in like 9 different venues. And so it's spliced together from different small venues across the country. So it's kind of a different rhythm, but it's really, really good. Has a really good alligator story, which I always love. I always kind of shout out Nate Bargatze's God tier alligator joke from his half-hour special on Netflix with the stand-ups. But Chris Gethard does a pretty killer alligator joke about Gatorland in Orlando that I'm like, you need to see the special just for the last 5 minutes because it's like you really won't believe where he takes it, literally. So if you're looking for like just something funny to watch for an hour, Chris Gethard's Half My Life on Amazon Prime.
Very cool. I have got done watching a great movie, which we talked about offline for a little while. It's called The Power of the Dog on Netflix. Man, this is another one. I've had the fortune of watching what I think are Oscar contenders for the past 2 movies.
Oh, that is for sure. That is for sure.
Without knowing anything about this movie, when it came out, and like we were talking earlier too, this is probably not an Aaron movie, but let me just try and describe it a little bit. Takes place in 1925 Montana, sort of the end of the cowboy era, would you say, Sarah?
Mm-hmm.
So the tail end is, cars are becoming more prevalent.
And, they don't have to drive their cattle all the way down to the stockyard. They just have to get them to the train station.
Right. Yeah.
So
there's 2 brothers. Their parents, I take it, the old gent and the old lady.
Mm-hmm.
They started the cattle ranch and became successful. Now the 2 sons have taken over the business. One is the head rancher. The other one's sort of the business manager, would you say? And
yeah.
Jesse Plemons is the young. I take it he's the younger brother. Would you say he's?
Yeah, I think it's definitely. I mean, I haven't read the novel that it's based on by Thomas Savage, but the impression you get from the movie is Benedict Cumberbatch plays Phil, the older brother, right, who's like the more accomplished one. He was like a notable student at Harvard, and everyone's like, "Oh, yeah. Phil's so interesting." And then the younger brother is Jesse Plemons, and he's not, he doesn't seem like he's dumb, but compared to Phil, he seems like a little bit of a loser. Like people just aren't really interested in him. They don't really care about him as much. He wants to be like a society guy. Like he's trying to mix cocktails for the governor at a party. The governor's literally like, just where's Phil? Like,
yeah, yeah, exactly. And he was a Yale man, he was a great banjo player. And he constantly,
and music has a big
in all of Jane Campion's films, wouldn't you say?
Yeah,
music is a big thing. People who can perform musically.
Here it's just sinister. There's like a very sinister whistle that is so upsetting.
Sure.
And the banjo becomes very ominous.
Sure. And Benedict Cumberbatch's performance is excellent as Phil. And Phil, let's just be frank, Phil's an asshole.
Oh yeah, no, he's a very terrible person.
He's a dick.
he's the kind of terrible that you think like he's running the. It's not like they sit around and just give you like, oh, here's the whole deal on this family, but the impression you get because the governor of Montana recognizes them on sight in a time when you might only meet someone like them 2 or 3 times in person. Like you wouldn't be seeing them all the time. So you get the impression that they're like very well-to-do, very, very successful ranchers, and very, successful. Very important in that milieu, like very important in Montana, very important in ranching, cattle business.
Absolutely.
And it's just like unbelievable how well they ground everything in just the way people are interacting.
So well drawn. The old gent and the old lady who are the parents, of course, they're retired, and George meets and falls in love with Rose, who's played by Kirsten Dunst. And
real life power couple, by the way, Jesse Plemons and Kirsten Dunst.
Did not know that.
Real life power couple.
They must have. Did they meet on set or did they do?
No, they've already got a couple kids together. Like they've worked together before. Like they're just. Everyone's always like into the Brad and Angelinas, and I'm more like Jesse Plemons and Kirsten Dunst are probably way cooler in person.
I first saw him in Breaking Bad. Right? Is that?
Yeah, that was where Jesse. Well, Jesse Plemons was in Friday Night Lights.
Okay.
Back in the 2000s, he was on Friday Night Lights. He was the one who tried to have like the Christian rock band. If you watched FNL, but then I think Breaking Bad was where most people probably.
Friday Night Lights, the movie, one of my favorite of all time sports movies. Billy Bob Thornton.
The movie's good. The TV show is good. The book is good. The documentary is good. There's literally not a bad version of that story.
It's great. It's a great story. The ending's fantastic of the movie. Before we get to Aaron, I know Aaron's dying to get out something here. If you like Jesse Plemons, you'll like this one, Aaron. Rose is talked into moving into the ranch with Phil and George, which drives her literally to drink. And she has a strange son who's studying to be a doctor. And he's I don't want to give away anything more, but Cody Smith-McPhee also excellent in this performance. I would be surprised if Cody gets a nomination.
They're all getting nominated. Maybe not Jesse Plemons because Cody Smith-McPhee might pull votes.
Exactly.
But Benedict Cumberbatch, Kirsten Dunst, Best Picture, Jane Campion, Screenplay, Cinematography, a lot of craft nominations. It's gonna be one of those movies that gets like 10 or 11 nominations.
It was so beautiful to look at. The shots. It wasn't Montana, it was New Zealand. Right? It was New Zealand. So it was absolutely gorgeous. It was just so beautiful. Every shot, the trails, the mountains, the ranch. The secret places of the characters that they had in and around the ranch.
And it's really sad. A lot of people are kind of comparing it as like a spiritual sequel or prequel even to Brokeback Mountain. Like there's definitely a strain of Phil is he's a very angry, unhappy person because he's he's repressed and he's embittered. And there's like a strong thread of that, but it's
we don't want to give away too much, but
the performances are so good. It's truly one of the best movies of the year.
I agree. I hope, Aaron, you take the time to watch it. Even Rachel, I know it doesn't sound like your type of movie, but man, I'm telling you, when you get wrapped up in the characters and just looking at how beautiful every single shot is, almost every single shot is beautiful. The way they frame the characters, the way the rooms are shot, even the camera angles and stuff. It's just it's craftsmanship.
I do think
so beautiful.
The really kind of nice thing about streaming is that it lowers the stakes essentially for trying things outside your wheelhouse, because I sort of believe 2 things to be true, which is don't waste your time on things that aren't making you happy. Life is too short to watch something you're not enjoying. And also try things that aren't your comfort zone. And if you don't like it, if you're 30, 40 minutes in and you're like, I really am not engaged, I really don't like this, fine, walk away from it. It's on Netflix. It's not going to cost you anything beyond the monthly fee you're already paying for 1,000 other things.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, it is one of those things that I'm like, just try it because you might be surprised.
I'm telling you, Aaron, I went into it not knowing anything about it. I got sucked in, and my wife, I got into it. I'm just looking at it. It was so beautiful, man. I know it's probably not your movie. If you have any inkling of interest in westerns, I mean, you can get sucked in and think of it from a Western angle because, minus gunfights and black hats and white hats.
Yeah,
that's like Western,
but
right?
It's a Western, but it's
it's
not
a Western.
Yeah,
Right, exactly.
It's in the West, but it's not a Western. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
That kind of, but like that's like, oh, if you like Star Wars without lightsabers, like I don't want to watch
That's
a
not
Western
Star
without
Wars.
gunfights,
Yeah.
right? Like that's not.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
That's not a
if
Western
you
for me.
want to watch a Western with gunfights and you're on Netflix and you're trying Power of the Dog and it's really not working for you, try The Harder They Fall.
I've been, we
It's
talked about
Zelda,
that. I
it's
have
Gina
wanted to watch
King.
that. Yeah.
That is a
Very cool.
Western with a lot of gunfights. It's
There you go.
also incredible to look at, like the level of craftsmanship, the use of music, which is very, very different, but
Mhm.
also very good.
Good.
Like that's a really good movie as well. So it's just
Yeah.
it's entirely different from Power of the Dog.
yeah.
it is a-
entirely different. Yeah.
It is a
have
Western
wanted
with
to watch it.
gunfights.
Good. Yep,
So
I have
Aaron-
wanted to watch it.
What are you watching right
You
now?
know-
And how's it going for? I know you said you're taking a break from
Hadn't
watching.
thought about what it was until you said Jesse Plemons and I looked it up. Actually, my girlfriend and I just watched Jungle Cruise,
Hmm.
Yeah.
the movie, and I didn't.
You
It
didn't
looked
like it.
okay. I'm not a Dwayne Johnson fan, but I loved it. I
I
laughed
did too.
my butt off, dude. I thought it was
enjoyed it
so
as well.
good. The casting was awesome. Jesse Plemons, I'm liking him the more I see him because he was in another movie a while ago called Date Night.
Yeah.
Where he kind
Oh,
of played the
and
creepy cop, and he
I-
nailed that too.
I truly believe this. That was the best supporting actor performance of the year. He absolutely, and I sincerely believe
Mhm.
this, not being facetious in the least, should have won an Oscar for that.
So
Yeah.
Date night refreshed my memory because the title
It's got
sounds
Date
Jason
Night.
Bateman, and I can't remember.
Okay.
It's Jason Bateman and Rachel McAdams and Kyle Chandler and
Yeah.
Jesse Plemons
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I have
And
not seen this
it's like
one.
a
I
group
love
of
Rachel McAdams
friends
too.
that get together and play games, and they're hyper competitive.
They get drawn into like an actual crime, and they think that they're
It's
just
part
like
of the
screwing
game.
around. They think it's part of the game, and it's like an actual people are getting murdered and
Oh, I
like
gotta see
died,
this. My
and
wife
Jason
will love
Bateman
this one,
gets
too.
shot.
Yeah,
But no,
it-
Jungle Cruise. Like I said, I'm not a Dwayne Johnson fan really, but he didn't play the guy that he plays in every other movie. I feel like it was kind of you knew it was still him, but it was a sidestep a little bit. And just about everybody in there was awesome. The more I'm starting to see Jack Whitehall, the more I'm liking him. He was the first time I remember seeing him was in the Amazon Prime special, Good Omens.
I love
and
that movie.
he plays Emily Blunt's brother in this movie, and goes along with her too. It's got Paul Giamatti and it's got Emily Blunt. It's got Veronica Falcone, who was in Perry Mason too, which we
Mhm.
covered.
She was the really
Yeah.
sexy lady in Perry
Yep,
Mason.
yep, exactly, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's got a bunch of other good, kind of like lesser known
The
people, but
evangelist in Perry Mason.
No, that was
No.
Tatiana
She
Maslany.
was,
She was like the mysterious, sexy lady who
who-
wanted to buy the airfield.
the airfield, yeah.
Oh, right. The
lady-
Mexican,
With the kind of
Mexican
a
American.
voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Falcone, right? Was her name?
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's got I don't know what else he's in. I'm kind of trying to look it up. Edgar Ramirez was kind of the main villain in it.
I mean,
Uh,
I like Jungle Cruise. Okay, it is just the Mummy. Like,
Sure.
It's just- it is just the Mummy. The best
I
thing
can see
about
that.
it is that Jesse Plemons does a great comedy villain
Right.
performance.
He's like the German
He's a
sub
Nazi.
commander.
It's the best
Yeah,
part.
he's
It's
like
so
a
good.
proto-Nazi submarine
Yeah.
commander.
That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah, and Emily Blunt, sure, right?
Mhm.
And her brother. I don't know. Is that Jack Whitehall?
Jack
was the
Whitehall
brother?
plays her brother.
He was
yeah.
hilarious.
He's so good.
I
He's
did
good
find
in anything.
the romance between Emily Blunt and Dwayne Johnson to be repulsive. Didn't
yeah.
like it. Didn't like
Really?
it. Did not
Okay.
need them to kiss. Didn't need it. They had
There-
no chemistry.
There's a YouTube show I watch called Pitch Meeting. And just like these two
Yeah.
fall in love, and they're like, "Why?" And he's like, "Because they're attractive in the movie, so they have
Shout
to fall
out-
in love."
I think the guy's name is Ryan George. He's
Ryan
really,
George
really
is
funny
a
with the pitch
genius.
meetings.
He's a
And he
genius.
Oh,
some
right,
of them
yeah.
he really nails, and he nailed Jungle Cruise.
It's so
Oh my
good.
God.
Yeah, I haven't watched the Jungle
Um,
Cruise one, but Tooch, I've sent you some of
Hilarious.
his pitch meetings.
Yeah,
before.
yeah. Hilarious.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh,
And if you
for
watch
me-
his other stuff, just his like YouTube stuff, where it's just him doing Ryan George stuff too, he's also awesome.
So Jungle Cruise for me is something I could watch with my kids.
Yeah. Oh,
They went on-
absolutely.
They went on the
Absolutely.
Disney ride,
Absolutely.
and they,
Yeah.
they enjoy that kind of stuff. We did do the Disney ride.
I
at
don't
Disney
know.
World.
I don't know how kids get scared of things. It might be a teeny bit scary because the bad guys are conquistadors who get like
Sure.
subsumed into the jungle.
Right.
So at one
and
point,
they're kind of
like-
living dead as well.
yeah, like
right?
bees pour out of a guy's face
Yeah.
and like frogs come out of a guy's mouth. So that's maybe a
But
little scary,
even
but
That
It's-
guy
I think
was
it's fine.
hilarious.
It's,
Where he sits on about we're tortured, and he's like licks him. He's like, "I'll speak for yourself. I'm delicious." Like the
Yeah,
banter
but
between those guys was
it
so
was
good
actually
too.
kind of dark, which nobody
Yeah.
acknowledged at the end because
Right.
they are like, no, it's torturous because they're like frozen
They
in the jungle, but they're
did
like
say that
they're
at
like
the end.
sentient inside and they can't get out. And Dwayne Johnson just traps them and it's like, la-di-da, and it's like
Yeah.
that's really dark.
Yeah, well, he goes with them initially too. And well,
but he doesn't-
spoiler
I
alert,
mean,
but yeah,
But
They took
it's
the
pretty dark.
Pirates of the Caribbean formula and just
Yeah,
repackaged it.
It's
but
the
still
pirates and the
enjoyable.
mummy just like mashed
Yeah.
together.
Exactly.
yeah, it's
Take a
really
Disney-
entertaining. It's a good
Take
one.
a Disney
absolutely.
theme park ride and turn it into a movie. I don't know what the
Yeah.
next one will be. I was down.
Haunted
for that
Mansion.
film,
Haunted
but- Is it
Mansion.
Haunted Mansion?
It's filming in Atlanta right now.
That's
Nice.
too funny. I didn't know that.
I-
That's
my-
hilarious.
My kids and I did that ride. And I tell you, my 3-year-old
It's
was like hidden in my armpit.
It's a
just
great
could not
ride.
Look.
It's a great ride. It's Tiffany Haddish and Owen Wilson and a couple other people.
Very cool. Love Owen Wilson and Loki. So good. Performance was great. All right. Well, I guess we'll have to get to Wheel of Time episode 5.
We have
And,
to get to it. That's
uh,
a shining endorsement.
Right. Like I said, I'm still convinced that the show isn't for regular folks. I mean, I don't know if they've.
But then why would you make it?
I know, but I mean, it's like they tried to make something for regular folks, but then they kind of maybe thought, you know what? I don't know if we can make something because. I mean, there's so much history to.
I
and
mean,
the universe is so big, and people just
Everyone
don't know
keeps
what's going
saying
on.
that, but they cracked Lord of the Rings, they cracked Game of
Yeah.
Thrones, like other big fantasy things have been turned into successful adaptations.
Sure.
This one just isn't working.
You know, and you know, every time I don't like the kid actors, the actors who play the kids.
I was really like when they started going in on, so like spoiler warning, whatever. When they started going in on Sad Face Boy, I was like, oh,
Matt.
please kill him.
Matt.
Please.
Is it
Please
Matt
kill
or
him.
Matt or Rand is sad? Which one is sad face boy?
The sad one that they were like torturing.
Oh no!
Oh,
okay,
it-
gotcha.
He's
yeah.
just
So
like,
the-
I killed my girlfriend. Let me
Okay,
die.
okay.
And I was like,
Which
yes,
we
let
talked
him
about
die.
in the recap
Okay.
for that.
I didn't know
episode,
which
it was
sad
pretty
brooding
clear
boy
she was coming
uh,
to kill him when she killed her.
because the 4 characters you have to because they're so important to the story. You have to like them, and the actors are terrible. The
No,
one the big kid is not a good actor. The red-haired kid is passable. The girl is okay. The best actor is the guy
Girl's
they're
okay.
replacing.
Girls, yeah, but also you mentioned last week the thing that is making him sick is the dagger he stole from the Shadow City, and I
Yes.
swear to God, I was
didn't get
really paying attention this week. You never would know that.
They
You
still
would
haven't
never
told us.
know that.
Yeah, they still
Like,
haven't told us.
They're not even hinting that that's what's making him sick.
No, and that's why I keep going back to they made this for it's like they forget to tell the audience about the things in the book that you get while you're reading the book. Am I right?
Yeah, but I can't even imagine book readers really being enthusiastic about this because
Well,
the acting isn't great across the
Exactly.
board.
But, the two best actors, or two
I mean,
or 3 or 4 maybe best
Rosamund,
actors, Rosamund and Daniel, and they're
Very
minor.
good.
They're not. I mean, they're not minor characters, they're not major characters. But the 4 kids are the major characters in the book, and you have to like them in
and
order
they
for the
just
series to
don't.
work. And I don't really like them either.
No.
The best actor is Matt. You know, the one who's getting sick, and you know he's the one who's doing the best job of acting. The rest of the kid, the red-haired kid is wooden. So's the other one whose back they cut in this episode.
Yeah,
And then Gwen
Aaron,
is okay.
yeah.
The girl she's not bad. She's cute, you know, but I don't know. She's okay as an actress.
they're
they
not
did not-
carrying.
They needed better actors,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, and also there's a little bit of there's still a problem that like I have been informed that Lan, the hottest guy on the show, and Ninian, the really obnoxiously sour-faced lady,
Yeah, 90.
whatever. Their names just roll off me. Like,
NYNAEVE. That's annoying.
it's they're supposed to like fall in love, and they said it in this episode. Like they're
I
like,
think
oh,
that's pretty
she's-
clear.
Somebody said like, oh, she's in love with you, and I was like, when? Why? like
So,
I would get it if they were saying like there's like an obvious attraction. Fine, they had a moment over the fire while they were on the road, but at the point that one of the characters was like, she's in love with you, I was like, What?
Maybe because her power manifested
You know,
when
no,
she was trying to
it's
save him.
literally because
She's not a good actress either, though.
but they're just telling us these things. They're just saying
Yeah.
she's in
that's
love with
fair.
you now, and they're not showing us her falling in love. Why
Yeah.
she's beyond just being like he's hot, why is she attracted to him? Like, what's the compulsion?
That's
do you
why.
Think do you think they spent too much money on effects and not enough money on actors?
I mean,
Or they just got the wrong ones.
maybe,
I-
but you look
there-
at all the other shows with like no name, like not to put down Mustafa Shakir, but he's not a household name actor, and he's fucking great in
Yeah.
Cowboy Bebop.
You're-
Oh, he was in Luke Cage. He was the
Yes.
Jamaican in the second
Yes.
season, and he
But
was. It's so yeah.
But
Go,
it's
go
not
on,
like
but
it's
he's so
not like
good.
you're spending a ton of money on
Yeah.
Mustafa Shakir.
Yeah,
And yet he's a great actor. So
and
I
he
feel like
nailed the voice.
He's in
Cowboy Bebop. He plays Jet
he's
Black.
not in Wheel of Time though, correct?
No,
he's in-
no,
he's
but
in
what
Cowboy
she's
Bebop.
saying
I'm
is-
just saying, like, you don't
Right.
have to pay top dollar for good actors. There are good actors at every level.
Yeah.
So they just didn't. When it comes to the younger cast, they just didn't find them. I find the older actors, like not
Yeah.
that Rosamund Pike is my age, so calling her older hurts my heart. But like the grown-ups, like Rosamund Pike, Daniel Henney, I don't know her name, but the woman who plays the blonde
Kate
Aes Sedai,
Fleetwood.
yeah, okay, her, like
Yeah.
they are the guy who was the scary white cloak man, like
Yeah.
they're all really good, and when they're
Yeah.
on screen things are clicking and it's working, and then they cut to those kids and you're just like, Jesus Christ.
We got Jeff Hanby in the chat room giving he's okay with the actors for the most part. He thinks the problem is writing and direction.
Well,
And
and
that's
this is-
possible.
To be
Yeah,
fair to those younger actors,
Yeah.
truly, if the writing was better, because it does seem like sometimes they're struggling with a lack of quite
It's
knowing
probably
what
a
to do and where to
combination of
go.
both.
Because
Yeah.
it's because they're young and they don't quite know how to, like older
Yeah.
actors, they've been through it all, they've seen it all, they've done it all. When they get a weak script, they know how to carry it. And younger actors don't always know how to do that. So it very well could be with different material, with better material, those kids could be really good actors. I don't want to
Yeah,
say
is
like
it
they
possible?
suck, never cast them again. They're just not doing well here.
With this
They're
part,
not doing
right.
well here. Is it possible that maybe they'll get better?
I mean, it can happen because you look at Game of Thrones, and I think
Yeah.
in the first season or two, the younger Stark actors aren't necessarily great.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
as the show goes on, especially like you look at someone like Kit Harington, and the more material he gets,
Yeah.
and the more
Don't
he has.
really have a
She wasn't-
direction.
Kit
Kit
better
Harington
he
really
get.
wasn't that good of an actor in the first season. He was kind of
No, neither was Amelia Clark. Amelia Clark was pretty
Right.
stiff and awkward, and
Yep.
that might have been that she was just naked so much and uncomfortable with it.
Yeah,
because
she
has
talked about that in an
spoken-
interview.
Could
She
Yeah.
has spoken about it since of like she just
Yep.
wasn't really comfortable with everything that was happening on sets.
Yep.
Doesn't make a
Exactly.
difference.
That
Yeah,
might
and I
have been
wondered.
bleeding through a little bit, but
Yeah,
Yeah. Noel agrees with me about all the money going to the sets and effects.
it looks
possible,
great.
quite possible.
It
Yeah,
looks
fantastic.
amazing. Like those sets are really beautiful.
Right.
But yeah, the writing is just not. And I think this could be. I've spoken with screenwriters who have worked on adaptations, and it's interesting because I had a conversation with a screenwriter who's worked on novel adaptations and comic book movie adaptations, and it was curious what he said about working on the two different formats. Is that comic books are easier because they're much simpler stories, and there's not as much texture because so much of it is drawn.
Yeah.
And so when you're talking about bringing it to the screen, you have fewer rules of being imposed. Whereas with a
Yeah.
novel, you can almost become overwhelmed by, like Jeff Hanby is saying, I think the story suffers because of storyline compression. That's
what I was
probably
thinking.
true. It feels like they're hitting these big story points. Like, okay, Ninian is in love with Lan now, but we never actually got to see that develop because they just blew through it. And it's like, I'm not enjoying this, so it's a weird thing to say, but I do think like this season needed to be a little bit longer, and we need to spend more time with these characters just interacting.
I mean, I know the seasons are 8 episodes, correct?
Yeah.
So, I mean, couldn't the first season have been 12?
Or even just 10. Even just 10.
Or 10.
Do one bonus episode at the beginning of just establishing the young people in their town with their families and friends. What is the first episode becomes the second episode, and then do maybe like one more episode of everyone together on the road,
In
so
the
we
middle,
get a little bit
maybe,
more
yeah.
sense of everybody sort of interacting it together.
Yep.
So that when they're split up, we understand better what it means for them to be split
Yeah.
up.
Because I'm here having
that
to
probably would fix
explain to
it.
you guys what's going on and stuff because I have the luxury of.
I finally had to just start Googling stuff. I was just
Yeah.
like, I'm not
Yeah.
getting what I need for the show. I'm just gonna have to start Googling stuff.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of the kids' stories, like Jeff is saying, Matt's story lost in compression, and so is Rand. And he's right.
And that might be why
We
they're so
don't
boring.
care about Rand. You know, we
Yeah, I
don't care
really
about
don't care
Aaron.
about Rand.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to go back to what he said here about not this one, the dark friend Layla theory. So Layla was Perrin's woman, and they worked in the forge together. In episode 5, you actually see a scene, and it looks like she's about to kill him.
Recap. It was in the recap. I was talking about
was
that
in the
earlier.
recap.
It was
Yeah.
pretty clear that she was running at him, and that's when he got her. So yeah. That's a tough one.
He says it doesn't work. I don't know. I think it's ambiguous, but I mean, I'm not going to say either way, but it sure looked like she was trying to kill him because there's nobody around.
But even then, the Dark Friends don't want to kill the kids. They want to recruit the kids to stop the Wheel of Time, right?
Yeah,
like
but
that's
she
what
didn't
the
have an
barmaid
axe. She
said.
had a hammer. Maybe she was just going to knock him out.
I mean, I feel like if you hit someone on the head with a hammer, I know movies and TV shows all the time, people are like bonked on the head with things and they're fine. But I also feel like if you hit someone on the head with a hammer, you're going to hurt them seriously.
Right?
That's brain damage.
But the barmaid though, that kind of was looking like she's having a thing with Rand. Remember, she was Dark Friend as well, and she made it very like you're trying to kill us because she had the sword. And she's like, I don't want to kill you. I want you to help. Like the Dark people want you. So I don't know that it makes sense that the girl was trying to kill Perrin because. Everything indicates that they're trying to recruit whoever the dragon may be.
Well, like I said, the Dark Friends are out to recruit the Dragon Reborn too. We got that, like you said, that one, the tavern keeper, the gal who trapped Rand in that room, with the ironwood door.
Which he knocked down. Yeah,
which he knocked down. She told them why they want to break the Wheel of Time. They don't want to keep getting reincarnated. So
which is weird because
maybe Layla wanted to do that as well. She's made a Dark Friends. Maybe it's like the Empire and the Rebellion. Were the rebels the good ones or the Empire's the good?
Stories that
in original Star Wars, the rebels are the good ones.
Right, for sure. I know, but from the Empire's point of view, they're the good guys, right?
Yeah, but the Nazis were the good guys from their point of view. So
that's for sure. Yeah, it's all point of view.
And nothing that Wheel of Time has done justifies complicating the Dark Friends to that level. Like they're clearly just.
And I don't remember that being the case in the books either. They were just bad guys, blackheads. But in Foundation, you kind of have the same thing, with the Empire's kind of the.
Well, Empires are bad.
Right, the Empires are bad.
Like Empire is not a good thing. Empires are bad.
Cleon, the Cleon dynasty.
Please name any piece of fiction where there's a good empire. They're always bad. I do have to say, like, of the kids using their powers, the sad-faced axe boy, whatever.
The wolf one, yeah.
Okay.
Brian, whatever his name is. He has an awesome power.
Yes, he does.
Power is the bomb.
Yeah.
That's from the books. He talks to wolves. He doesn't know what's going on right now. But
what about him though? Because
it was so cool when he started screaming and you heard the wolves howling in the back. Like I was like, "This is cool."
Does he transform or get imbued strength? Because the way he was approaching the black guy in the tent, the white cloak, kind of because he said, "What are you?" He was kind of almost hulking out. So is there more to that?
That is one of his latent abilities. The wolf friend to talk wolves, and they
beyond that with him physically. That's what I'm saying. Something with him
strength. He's a big guy, and he was a big guy.
He was a blacksmith. I mean, he's probably stronger.
Yeah.
Just because he's a blacksmith.
Yeah.
Muscles.
Right. So, let's talk about some of the things that the nuggets that they dropped that people might have missed. I want to say there was actually you get this little bit of knowledge from this guy, Loyal.
My favorite part of the episode, actually.
He's what you call an ogier, or Rand calls him an ogre. An ogre, of course.
You know what? Instantly, I thought of with him from the first scene. He reminds me of the Ents from Lord of the Ring.
right? He's played by this guy.
He's older. He keeps talking about humans are too fast. They don't slow down. And like he's kind of
Right.
knows a whole bunch. He's an Ent from Lord of the Rings. Essentially, it's exactly the thing I thought of.
And this is the actor. His name is Hamid Animashan. And he's got a great voice. Man, I love his voice.
Oh yeah.
He's got very deep and English proper speaking accent, which is how they were described in the books. They call the Ogiers tree huggers. Or tree singers. Sorry, not tree huggers. Tree singers. They have the ability to sing to the trees and make them grow. They live in these steadings. They build beautiful. They're mostly hired as architects by humans to design and build buildings and stuff in these great cities and stuff. You find that out later, but they're very intelligent. And in the book they were 10 feet tall, and Loyal in this one he's about 7 feet tall.
Yeah, I don't know how you did it with the show. Yeah,
they would have had to CGI him, but it's fine enough. But he tells, he meets Rand. Of course, he's the one who locates Nynaeve in the city because he figures, he saw someone with the braid of the two rivers, the real long braid that Nynaeve has. He said the Aes Sedai are parading the false dragon in order to demonstrate the dangers of the madness. So that was one you missed. And
no, that was very obvious.
That's pretty
that
okay,
was
good.
Very clear.
So that was one you may have missed. The Children of the Light, meanwhile, are the ones who dislike channeling, and you get a little glimpse of their beliefs. They say humans are not meant to touch the one power. Only God, the Creator, is meant to touch the one power.
That's a pretty common thing in movies. You remember in the movie Jumper, Samuel L. Jackson was like, you shouldn't have this power. It should be only God's. There was another one. Even at the end of the first Doctor Strange movie, Mordo, I can't remember his name. I think it's Baron Mordo said something about there's too much magic and they're trying to. That's a pretty common theme in fantasies and stuff, especially where there's magic. It's like humans shouldn't have this power, and they seek to kind of take it away, whether it be a religious thing or not.
Yeah, that's actually starting to touch on the thing that's starting to kind of bother me about this show. I mean, like one of the things that's starting to bother me about this show. But so we get the White Cloaks and their philosophy of like, okay, nobody should have this power, blah, blah, blah.
And their main battle tactic is backhanded bitch slaps.
Well, against the hippies.
Right, against the traveling people.
Why work harder than you have to? Like if you can just slap someone, just slap someone.
Yeah.
Right. But okay, so there's clearly this gender divide bubbling up of the Aes Sedai are all women. They're very powerful. There's a lot of fear and resentment towards them. There's the White Cloaks who seem to.
This is the problem that Aaron had too. That we had a little discussion last night.
And as much as he's talking about like, oh, only God should have this power. No, clearly, it's just diaper babies who are mad that the ladies are special magic people.
Which the blonde mentioned.
It's not that though either, because it's.
Well, but that's what's coming across in the show.
Okay. Obviously, like you understand that men.
Yeah, no. I get it. Okay. I get it. The dragon broke the world. Blah blah blah.
Right.
They're diaper babies who are mad that women are special.
The dark one tainted the one power.
Yeah. We got that. They're diaper babies who are mad about special magic ladies.
And not everybody can use the one power. Only certain people have the ability.
I got that.
Okay.
I got that. I'm just saying the dynamic that is arising is that they are diaper babies who are mad about the special magic ladies, and the Red Aes Sedai they have this whole thing where they don't use warders because they don't like men.
They don't like men.
Heavy,
and they're possibly lesbian.
Great, but also very heavy implication that specific Aes Sedai was sexually assaulted. Therefore, she doesn't want anything to do with men. Yeah. And it's like, okay,
that's in my notes. The Red Aja do not take warders.
Yeah, and what I'm kind of getting from Wheel of Time is all the interesting stuff in your show so far has to do with the gender politics, and you don't want to touch any of that shit with a 10-foot pole.
And you don't need to.
That is hurting your show.
You don't need to. Yeah.
I mean, no, but they do need to. But they do need to because it's the only interesting stuff that they have going for them, and they're not doing anything with it. And it just sort of makes like all these like little like dangling little interesting bits that don't then go anywhere because
they're not connected.
They just don't want to touch it.
Yeah.
Well, to prove Sarah's point, the blonde actually says that when they're in the hallway, she says that the world is filled with men who control everything that don't like it when a little girl gets a little inkling of power. So like exactly what Sarah's saying, she said that exact line in the show.
Yeah.
Right.
And yes, Tooch has read the books. He's the book reader among us.
I read all 15 books. It was a while ago, though. I'm not remembering everything. But
Doing great, though,
because
yeah.
I can't tell you now whether something was in the books. I don't remember the Tavern Keeper being in the book. I don't remember some of these other things that happened with the. I don't remember the questioner capturing Perrin and Egwene. You know, the child Valda. I don't remember that. I mean, I'm not saying I didn't like the scene. I did enjoy the scene. I love the actor who plays the questioner.
Yeah, he's really good.
Chewing up the scenery.
Makes
hope
your
he's not
skin
dead.
crawl.
We didn't-
No, he's not.
We didn't see a body,
No.
so I assume he's
Now
not.
they
He's,
stabbed him like in the shoulder.
He's in the books throughout, pretty much for the whole time.
He's
so,
not going anywhere. He's too good.
right, Dana was not in the books. That's what I thought. So that's the innkeeper lady. Yeah, I mean, some of the changes that they made, I'm not sure that they were necessary. I don't know. Did Dana explained like the dark friend point of view, which you guys feel isn't necessary. I'm not sure if it's necessary.
They just haven't
because I didn't think
done
about
anything with it yet. We
Yeah.
had that one scene of
And I don't know
one
if they will.
person.
Yeah.
But I just
Okay.
think the stuff that's most interesting is the stuff with the white cloaks, the stuff with
Right.
the red Aes Sedai being like, we don't want warders, and the implication being like, because men have hurt us, therefore we want to shut ourselves away from
Right.
them.
They blame men for the breaking of the world.
Well, yeah, which that one dude did.
Yep.
But I just think like, and I get it if you're the showrunner, if you're the producers, if you're the writers, and the way the whole world is, if you're just like, ugh, we don't want to be in the culture war. I get it. But the only interesting stuff in your show is this stuff, and you're not doing anything with it.
Yeah.
So
Yep. And then pile on top of that the bad casting of the 4 kids. I mean, and Matt, I still don't think it might get worse next season with the new actor that's replacing. He may be worse because the Barney Harris, I think, is the guy who plays Matt right now. He's doing a stand-up job. He's like the one who's acting the best out of all 4.
Yes, he is for sure the best actor of the 4, which really makes you wonder what the fuck happened that they fired him.
Right, exactly.
Clearly,
like driving or something.
I write about gossip
Philandering.
for a living, and clearly something happened.
Yeah, I agree totally. I thought about that today. I was reading an article, and they had they don't have any idea. There's a lot of speculation on why he was recast. You know, but maybe Jeff knows. No, in the chat room. But I do have some other notes. First of all, the scene with Perrin and Egwene being tortured. You know, you have like Egwene's like stripped down, washed. You know, and they're slicing. Pieces of skin off of Perrin's. It was horrible. It was made me very uncomfortable.
That was very bad. That was a very hard. That was a good scene. It's one of the
scene.
Yeah, it was probably the best
part.
scene in this episode. The episode would have sucked without this scene. To be honest,
for sure.
You know, Jeff says he's got no idea why they recast.
I mean, nobody does.
I guess.
Again, I professionally write about entertainment gossip for a living, and nobody has whatever happened, and clearly something calls. Did. They're keeping a really tight lid on it, but you don't just recast someone like that without an explanation.
It's already off. It's already off on a bad foot.
So
the series has started off on a bad foot, anyways. Like you said, it would have benefited from 2 extra episodes to set up a little bit of make you like the characters, because right now we don't give a shit about them. You know, unless you're a book reader.
I don't know that would have fixed everything, but I feel like a little bit more of a prologue to understand who these young people are and what their life is like before it's interrupted, and then maybe a little bit more time on the road just to see everybody gel together and get more of a sense of the group.
Yep.
I also really have a problem with just the sheer number of characters. So, okay, I get it. There are these witch ladies. We don't trust them, whatever. But just the sheer number of times
the center of the politics of the world.
But just the number of times that someone has been like, hey, I, who clearly know this place better than you, am telling you, don't do this thing. And then someone just immediately runs out and does the thing. I'm just like, okay, if you fall into a pit and die, I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. The funeral scene with
that was actually quite sad, but that's because of how good Daniel Henney and Rosamund Pike are.
What is happening? I don't know what the hell is happening.
The character of Steppen, who was the one guy who was Daniel Henney's friend, and Daniel Henney plays Lan, who is Moraine's warder. Yeah. His warder died. Steppen's warder died.
Right.
She was
yes, I knew.
Karenni, and when they're bonded by magic. Like, I don't know if we went over this before, but the warder is bonded to his Aes Sedai he's bonded to the Aes Sedai by magic. You know, when one dies, you know, it's tragic. Like he said, he was saying, you when you lose Moraine, let me know how you feel. You know,
Mhm.
basically tells Lan that. But the thing with the funeral, I'm not sure. I don't remember that being in the books. You know, of Steppen dying or
I think I read an article.
killing himself. I think they
And-
changed that for the books. So,
It might have been by Megan O'Keefe on Decider.com
Mhm.
about they're spending more time with the warders in the show than they do in the books. That they've
I wish
fleshed
she
them
could
out
have joined
fully.
us tonight. I asked her to join us tonight, but
I think she did say something about like they're turning them more into fully rounded characters rather than just lapdogs. But yeah,
Okay.
you definitely get a sense of like he's very devastated and very upset and isn't recovering at all. And you do kind of see the grief that is shared by particularly Lan, who they kind of establish he has a close friendship with. But you do kind of see the grief that everyone sort of feels. And I did think
Yep.
one of the more subtle, like great pieces of world building that was we talked about last week, like the lack of good textual world building in the show. But in this episode, when they're bringing the fake dragon guy through the city and they have the dead Aes Sedai's like horse with the saddle and her boots in the stirrups, which was like a common thing back in olden times. Like you would have, like if a president dies, for instance, they have a horse in the funeral cortege with a saddle but no rider. Like the riderless horse
Yeah.
represents. Anyway, somebody in the crowd
But the boots are
saw the
pointed backwards.
boots, right? But that means that she died in the battle.
Mm.
And someone in the crowd saw that, and the look on their face of like shock and horror immediately tells you like how
Revered they are.
formidable, well, revered,
Yeah.
but also formidable these women are, because it's like
Mm.
they're so shocked that one died.
Yeah,
and that
and you
was
know,
a great little piece of world building.
I did have to tell Aaron's men's portion of the one power. I don't know whether it's. I mean, right now it's tainted, right? That
Mhm.
causes, if they use it, it causes them madness. It has that black taint visually in it. But I was under the impression in the books that male channelers are a lot more powerful. That the male half is
Oh,
a lot
sure.
more powerful,
sure.
which is why
I'm
which
sure.
is why he tainted it,
I'm
because
sure.
men were the bigger enemy to the dark one. I could be wrong. I don't remember.
I'm sure at the end of this, that stupid
Jeff
pouty
says
boy
no,
is going to
but-
be the most powerful person in the world has ever known.
I don't know. I don't know. The big question from Noel. This is the big question, really. Do you think the show is
No.
5 beyond 3 seasons? I have to
No.
say, I'm a wagering man. I would say right at this point in time, I would say no.
Unless season 2 is a massive
Yeah.
leap forward.
Yeah,
No.
because season 1 kind of sucks. And now, what could happen maybe is they release like an extended cut of season 1. I don't know, director's cut with extra footage.
Maybe. I don't know.
Cut it. If they did that, why the hell wouldn't they just show the
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like
episodes?
with
So
movies, you
dumb.
can end up with quite a bit on the cutting room floor, but with TV shows, just the way they're written and produced, you don't usually have that much material left over.
Right. And,
So-
and then the reason I was thinking why the men channelers are more powerful is because it took 2 or 3 of the Aes Sedai to hold Logan in his cage.
Mm.
You know, and he even broke out with 3 of them on him. You know,
Yeah.
with 3 of them holding him down, he even broke out. I don't know whether it's just like different people have more power than other people. That's possible. And I was
Could also
not-
be that thing of, I think this is a Star Wars thing with like the dark side and the light side. And
sure.
not that the dark side is more powerful, it's that there are things you'll do on the dark side that you wouldn't do on the light
Mhm.
side.
Very great point. Great point. And then I wanted to make clear that like not everybody can channel. You know,
Mhm.
not everybody can touch the one power. Only a few people.
Yeah,
I mean,
no, that comes through.
Okay.
The rules
No, I
rules
get
of the
that.
power are very clear. Like
Okay.
they're not struggling
wasn't
with
sure.
that stuff at all.
I don't think it's clear. I mean, if you guys got it, that's great.
Yeah, no,
But
that's
I mean, to me,
that's
I'm
working.
like, I don't know if they said that. You know, and they haven't really told us enough information. That's one of the problems of the show. They haven't told us enough information at times for regular old Joe
well,
to
here's
get into the show.
as a regular Jane,
Mhm.
like the problems I'm having are not the rules of the world. The problems I'm having are the characters are not spending enough time
Yeah.
together to justify what you're telling me about these relationships. So it's more about the world building. It's more about the contextualization than it is the actual expository. Here's how things work. I'm getting how things work.
Mhm.
Okay.
It's more, like them saying like, oh, she's in love with you, and it's like, since when? Like,
Yeah.
they've had
This is the thing now. Yeah.
they've had one
I don't
half
like the actress who
conversation.
plays Nynaeve. I don't like the act. I don't think she's very good.
I have this thing. I don't think characters need to be likable. I really don't.
And she
They
wasn't
don't,
likable
they
in the
don't need to
books.
be likable, but there is just, you're not a likable character, and then there's an act of, I don't like watching you perform this character, and that's kind of
Right.
where I'm at with her. It's like
Sure.
so many of these characters. I was watching this episode today, and I'm like, everybody's a fucking dour bummer.
Mhm.
Like, who is bringing something sprightly and fun to this? And I know people will like get mad at, like, I'm going to use Marvel as an example because people will get mad at all the jokes, but like,
Mhm.
honest to God, you need humor. Something has to leaven the bread.
Mhm.
And there is nothing in this that is like leavening it. And so it is just such a fucking slog to get
thought
through.
The Ogier for me kind of
There
added
was-
a little bit of something
There was,
special
I
to it.
thought it was a little bit fun when he was like, just taking my time. And it's because he lives much longer than humans. He's
Mhm.
not in a hurry. I
Yep.
was like, that's clever, but that's literally that much. And
Yeah.
you have a little bit with the fun music man, but he wasn't in this episode.
Yeah, he wasn't, and he's that's another of the good actors, because he chews up the scenery when he's in the episodes. But here's what Jeff Hamby says. He straightened me out here. Men and women were equal. Men more powerful in the earth and fire aspect, while women were more powerful in air and water. They were equal in spirit. Men were necessary to join more than 8 women in a circle. I remember that they needed one man so that 8 women could combine their powers in one
Interesting.
blast. I think you'll see that in the maybe late episodes, and there's the final battle between good and evil. But men could feel women channeling. I seem to remember something like that. They could sense someone was channeling somewhere, whether it was in the same building but women could not sense men channeling.
Yeah.
I seem to remember that too. I don't know if that
I
will
mean,
even come out in the show.
That's interesting, but again, that starts to tie back into like the gender politics stuff that they clearly just don't want to touch. And it's like, you kind of need to, though, because that's all you have going for you.
Yep.
Kind of underpinning. Yeah, like Noelle says they need a Tyrion.
Yep, they need a Tyrion.
Tyrion was the character that even in like the heaviest, darkest Game of Thrones episodes, and it's not that he was cracking jokes all the time. He wasn't, but he would bring kind of that leavening agent, that breath of fresh air, something a little bit different tonally that kind of made everything else settle around him. And
there's no lighthearted character. There's no lighthearted character. Tyrion was a special character, and the actor was a special actor that brought him to life. The brilliant dialogue, of Tyrion.
At least in the early seasons,
for sure. At least in the early episodes. I mean, there's nobody close to that in Wheel of Time. I mean, Loyal will be a character as we go along, a minor character. You see him more. And then
I don't know that I need to see that character more. Like I get the gimmick. I get it. Like he's slow, like he moves slowly. Like I get that. I don't know that I need that a lot.
They're characters that are stops along the journey, I guess.
Yeah.
Like Tom Maryland and Loyal.
To go back to something that was said in the chat a little earlier. Oh, it's by Jeff. The books get worse. So many characters and so many threads that go nowhere. And honestly, this is like a problem I have with fantasy in general. And it just seems to be
especially
a trope of the genre.
Books.
Is that there will just be so many side tangents and like back histories that really don't have anything to do with anything. They're just like, oh, let me just tell you this interesting story that happened 1,000 years ago. And it's like, yeah, that's interesting. Does it have anything to do with anything? No. Why are we wasting time?
And that's one of the problems that this series developers have faced is that there's 15 freaking books,
Well, you don't have to cram all 15 books into the first.
Yeah, and picking and choosing, and I don't know whether they did a great job of paring it down into a TV show.
It's a lot. I mean, and that's really, it is a big challenge. And I sympathize with the writers. Like it's really hard to figure out how do you communicate, what do you communicate, how do you communicate it. But it feels to me that they prioritize the rules of the world and not so much the characters and the relationships. And that's what's actually going to drive the show.
Yeah.
So
that's what made Game of Thrones great, are the characters.
Yeah.
Because they drove you look at the great characters. You have the Tyrion, for example, which you always said. You had
Well, and
Cersei.
Game of Thrones
just
didn't
great
go.
characters.
Game of Thrones didn't go really hard on the magic and the prophecy and all that stuff until like season 3 or 4.
Mhm.
I mean, it laid the table with just the Starks and the Lannisters and what was going on with Khaleesi over on the other side of the sea. Like it was, when you sort of break down Game of Thrones, as big and sprawling as that show was, the first couple seasons are actually pretty simple.
Mhm.
And then it starts going hard on, okay, there's prophecies and there's magic and there's these monsters and there's this monster and there's this thing over here and there's the dragons are bigger and this is happening. Like that stuff all. And oh my God, I'm sorry. Like, I know I really pissed off the wheelies. I don't know what these fans call themselves.
We're going to call them wheelies.
I know.
Yeah, I don't know what they're called either, but
wheelies, that's it. That's what we're going with.
When the first trailer dropped months ago, I really pissed them off because I made kind of a joke about like, oh, there's no dragons. Boy, this show could use some dragons. Like the coolest thing that's happened in this entire 5 episodes so far was the wolf attack in this episode. Like we could use some cool
more of that
monsters. Like we could use again.
The monsters were dope. The monsters in the first season.
The Trollocs and the Fade. Tom fighting the Fade.
It's the leavening
agent. Yep. No, well, people love a good swashbuckler. That was what made Game of Thrones so great, is that you get to the end of the episode and it's a cliffhanger. And then, God damn it, I've got to watch the next episode. You might even have to watch it right after the next one. That's why the writing was way better.
What did you say those monsters are called, Tooch?
Trollocs.
I used to troll up with a P. I'm like, that's not the same thing.
Trolloc.
That's a totally different thing. I was like, I kept hearing it. I'm like, I don't know if I'm thinking of the same thing you guys are.
There is actually a really good, it's a different Robert that writes fantasy. Robert Asprin's novel series, Myth Adventures. And the books are not, there's a bunch of them, but they're like maybe, where's my camera? They're like maybe this. They're like maybe 300, 350 pages. They're not hugely complicated to read. I read them when I was a teenager. I love those books. And people are like, what would you like to see adapted? I'm always like, Myth Adventures. And they have this great thing where trolls are all masculine and they're like what you think of trolls. They're like big and ugly and gnarly. And trollops, their female counterparts, are these like unbelievably beautiful green-haired goddesses. And it's just like such a fun...
that's funny.
It's such a fun distinction, and it makes for some fun sibling relationships between trolls and trollops. Because trollops can just move through the world like normal because they're human. They're fully humanoid. The only thing that gives them away is that they're really beautiful and they have green hair.
I'd like to see this made into a series.
Oh, it's so good! And there's a dragon, and he talks. And it's it's a really like just sniveling bratty wizard learning from like a really experienced wizard who's also like a lizard man, and they just travel through realms.
That's
and
dope.
They're like wizards for hire, and they just do jobs.
I think that they could do some of the adaptation of the novels of Jack Vance, which is where George Martin got his inspiration for Game of Thrones. I mean, he had some great series, and the books again are kind of like this, and they're swashbucklers, with cliffhangers.
That's the thing, like Myth Adventures is like it's very it's kind of the thing what that screenwriter told me about adapting a comic book, which is very plot driven, versus adapting a novel, which can be very much more about the imagery, about the description, and it's Myth Adventures is like, it's simpler, it's stripped down, it's very plot driven, it's very action heavy, so it's kind of ready for cinematic adaptation. Whereas something like Wheel of Time, it strikes me like sometimes, because I do think there are some things that are just unadaptable. Sometimes things exist in the right medium.
Yep.
So maybe Wheel of Time as a book series, that's the right medium.
Totally.
Yeah. Or it might have worked as a graphic novels, too.
Well, yeah, that's a different thing.
Long graphic novel series. What about what Jeff says here? He disagree about the cast. He thinks they're doing it really well with the material. The material sucks.
The material
he makes
not
a good
great.
point.
The material's not great. I haven't seen any of these kids in anything else. And I don't want to just bag on them and be like, they're terrible. They'll never be good. Like they could be very good in other things.
They're passable. They're not exceptional.
You're not saying the actors. Well, you said we're the characters is more, I think, our gripe at this point. Yeah.
Let's just, that's a fair
But it is because the
Their
characters
website.
are uninteresting, and I think maybe they're just young enough that
That's
they
just
don't quite
it.
know how to make it work in
Yeah.
spite of a weak script.
And it
Except
doesn't seem
Matt,
like
who
they've given them
seems
much
to be
direction.
doing a good. Matt seems
Except
to be doing
for
a good
Matt,
job.
who
He's
actually
doing a good job.
is-
It's like brooding and like he's like sick and sometimes he's
Although again, you wouldn't know why
doesn't-
he's ill. You just
yeah, you
wouldn't
don't know why he's ill,
Right.
which is stupid. But I mean, how else are they going to tell you that though? I don't know.
Well, I feel like you could have
You could have some scenes of him like coveting it. In the
you
corner.
don't even need
Like
like multiple
Gollum.
scenes. You just need like
Yeah.
one. You just need
One
like
scene.
one cut. You need one
Right.
cut from his ill face to
yeah,
the knife.
yeah,
You just
My
need one
precious.
visual, just
Look at
one
the corner.
visual
yeah.
cue.
My precious kind of scene, like
Wow. You just need-
stroking the knife or something.
Just
yeah,
one visual cue.
Right. Yeah, something.
Agreed.
But you haven't
I
even
totally
seen
agree.
it since
But we
he
haven't
was
seen
holding
the
it up.
knife since.
Wait,
Right.
was he waving it at the creature in the?
He was just saying, "I
farmhouse?
see you," like
Yeah.
holding it up, But I mean, you haven't even seen the knife since then, so it's
Right.
unless did they? And I can't remember exactly. Did they make some kind of hint that he's been channeling?
Well, that's what Rand thinks is
That's
wrong
what
with
Rand
him.
theorized.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said, I think he can channel. He
'Cause-
doesn't know. He's just speaking.
But he
doesn't
doesn't
know.
know. It does.
He
I
doesn't
mean, I
know.
wonder if that's interconnected because I mean, obviously, I don't know if we talked about the part where the dragon goes by him and sees Matt and like starts laughing like a crazy person.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and-
no, that
and
was.
that
And then
was all
Matt
in
says,
Matt's
"If we ever
mind,
turn
though.
out like him, then
I assume-
kill me."
I
No,
assume
I
it was
think
all in
he
his
was-
mind. I don't think he was laughing up at Matt and Rand. I think Matt
Oh,
imagined.
Oh,
it.
you think that was all in his
I
mind?
thought I didn't
I
think so. I thought that was
Rand didn't have any reaction.
well.
Oh,
I mean,
that's
Rand's
true.
kind of a cool dude,
But-
though. Like,
But
doesn't
he
seem
would have
like
been
Rand
like-
is also kind of a block of wood. So
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't know
Yeah.
that Rand would have reacted considering he was laughing at Matt, but
Yeah.
I'll have to go back and watch it again. That's an interesting thought. I for sure because now I feel like
the actor who plays Tom. I think he's doing a pretty good job as well.
is
he's
that the
kind of
music
like
man? That
yeah, the
wasn't in this-
Glee man. Yeah, he
I
wasn't in the
missed him.
episode.
I
Yeah.
missed him this episode. We could have used a little bit of him.
He's a character that could get you into the show, and a little bit more of Rosamund Pike and Daniel Henney, and but
Lot more of them. Could definitely
Yeah.
use a lot more of them.
yeah, I would have liked to have. I don't know. The five kids from the Two Rivers, they are what Moraine and Lan were looking for, called Taviran, and that's they don't bring this up enough. And what is Taviran? And that
No,
is
we don't care. I don't
Yo,
care.
Garrett
Do
brought
I
that
need, do I
up,
need to
didn't
know
he?
for the show? I
It's,
don't care right now.
it might help you with the story. I don't
well,
know.
the O'Gara said that
it's honestly-
multiple times.
Did he say Taviran?
He said you're Taviran. He's like, I'm not a Taviran. I'm from the Rand said I'm not. And then he's like, no, you're a Taviran. Blah 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 blah.
Okay,
blah.
so
red
Taviran
hair
are
and that
people-
kind of a thing.
the Wheel of Time weaves the pattern around with the pattern that the wheel
just
weaves
don't
are the
care.
threads of human lives. No one is born; it's the pattern just weaving, and for some reason, where there's a need, the Wheel of Time weaves them into the story. So that's what I take it
Great.
to be. I'm not sure. Maybe Jeff.
I
can
hope the
explain
Wheel
it
of
better.
Time will figure out like
See here, this is a
What
great
story
point.
is
Same
by
it
Noel.
Noel.
trying to
Yeah,
tell?
same.
And this is why
And honestly,
got
I only know
IMDb up right
Lan's
now,
name.
which is the only reason I know
right.
these characters'
who
names.
are the characters that you guys know?
I
the names.
only know Lan's name and Moraine. This goes for both of them because I
Mhm.
like Daniel Henney as an actor.
Yeah,
I've
so
seen
do
him
I.
in
It's
other
great.
things. So
I-
I kind of, when he was cast in this, like it's stuck in my mind. Like, oh, he's playing this character. Same thing with Rosamund Pike. I'm a fan of her. I've liked her in
Mhm.
other stuff. So when I heard she was cast, I was like, okay, that's stuck in my mind.
Yep.
Literally, I like that there are characters named Matt and Tom in this world where everyone's names are like Alan Mondragon and like all these
Right.
crazy names, and then it's like Matt.
Right.
But I honestly I can't keep the kids straight. The names just whoosh.
Yeah.
I
That's a
think
huge
I've got the
problem.
names down for the
It's
kids.
a huge problem, man. Like you said, an episode before the first episode to introduce the fucking kids,
Mhm.
and this is what Jeff is saying, is that they're doing what they can with the material. They weren't given a material exposition.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Yeah.
seem like they've got much direction, like even from the beginning, which way they're going to go.
Yeah. I mean, what's weird is like, I don't know if you've been on IMDb, but this show has an 8.8 rating, which is huge. It's
Well,
like,
I'm
it's all
sure.
Wheel of Time fans. I'm sure
I
putting
assume it's
pens
Wheel
and-
of Time
yeah.
fans. Like I assume
Yeah.
it's fans of the book. And honestly, like haven't we learned by now the ratings on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes, like they don't mean anything. Like they're so
Right.
manipulated, and
That's what I'm saying. It
It's like
was the question
Wikipedia.
earlier. Is it going to make it past
Right?
season 3? And I'm like, if Amazon wants it to make it past season 3, it's
well,
going to
yeah,
make it past season
that
3.
is one thing to keep in mind is
Yeah.
Amazon doesn't need this to be a hit the way other networks
no,
or
they do
platforms
not.
do.
Great
No,
point.
they do not.
Yep.
What will kind of hurt Wheel of Time more than anything is if they don't move like units of Wheel of Time books and stuff
Mhm.
like that, because the
Mhm.
show can be a loss leader for Amazon, in the same way that Ted Lasso can be a loss leader for Apple. But I think at some point somebody looks around, like they used to have a little bit more of a drunken sailor attitude at Amazon in terms of their spending. But they're
Well,
a
but
little
as
bit
many
more responsible
originals
now.
as they
Like,
have too.
Yeah.
It's like they're just like, we're gonna
well,
do
and
this and kind of a
they're
deal.
launching Lord of the Rings, and so
Yep.
they have 2 expensive fantasy series, and one
Yep.
is a legitimate hit, and the other's not. Like, guess which one's going to go away?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now which one's going to go away if they don't pick it up. But Jeff is worried about the LOTR series, man.
I'm actually not, because they have a really big sandbox to play in, and they're
Okay.
not burdened. Like, I really feel like what's hurting Wheel of Time is that they're trying to be so like the fealty to the story of the book. And the hardest thing for adaptation, I remember when I was in school studying writing, and a novelist who had been adapted and had kind of a famously disastrous adaptation of one of his books, he was like, he's like, if Hollywood comes knocking, you take the money, you run, and you don't worry about what they do, because books don't work on screen.
Mm-hmm.
And that really stuck in my mind as I started, like, working.
Sometimes they
and
do, sometimes a lot of times they don't. But
but what he
I'll
meant
give you one
was
example.
no,
Yeah.
not in terms of raw adaptation. What he meant was, if you say, you have to ask yourself when you're adapting, and really good producers will ask this question. I've heard them ask this question: what makes this book great? And if it's a character or characters, if it's a plot element, you're going to have a chance at a good adaptation.
Yeah.
If it is something to do with imagery or the experience of reading the book, you're fucked. And no matter how hard you try, it's not going to work, because that's the thing you can't adapt.
Yeah.
So it goes back to what that screenwriter told me about adapting a novel versus adapting a comic book, and a comic book being so much easier because they're plot driven and they're simple stories.
And you have a storyboard already laid out for you.
Pretty much.
Right.
I mean, like the last episode of Hawkeye had that great
Hawkeye's
car
great.
chase, which was
love
almost
it.
shot for shot taken out of one of the Matt Fraction comics.
Yeah.
It was
Yep.
like a scene for scene recreation of a car chase in the comics. But it's that thing of like, so I can only assume that Wheel of Time is like very richly detailed, that the characters are like just tons of the interior time with the characters, and it's that those intangibles aren't going to translate to screens.
Right.
Books do not make movies.
Yep.
Characters and plots make movies.
Yep. And you know what? I think that the creators of this show, like Jeff said, I'm not sure the producers know who their audience is.
Yeah, I think they're
Fans of
trying
the
to
books or people. They're trying to satisfy 2 different audiences.
Yeah, I think they're trying to split the difference, and they're not happy.
Exactly. You know, if I don't know. I mean, there probably would have been. I'm surprised there wasn't a serious discussion about this. Like, say, you know what? Fuck it. We either make the show for book readers and we just say this is it, or we try to bring in people. And
well, you ideally you want it, again, like a successful adaptation is going to stand on its own. People shouldn't.
Yeah.
It's great if it does inspire you to pick up the source material, but you shouldn't have to.
Right. And they haven't done that.
And I really think too, something that gets lost.
Yeah.
And again, good producers will come through and remind the writers of this. Fuck the fans. Like they're gonna show up. Like, I know this sounds really, really mean.
They're not gonna like it either way.
No, it's not that they're not gonna like it either way. That's not it at all. It's that they're gonna show up in the beginning regardless.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
going to be curious. They're going to give it a shot just to see what happens. So don't worry about the fans. They're already on the hook. You have to get people who don't know the source material.
Yeah.
So don't split the difference. Make the show for the uninitiated. And if you're doing a good enough job, you will keep the fans interested along the way.
Yeah.
So.
They haven't done a good job of doing that. They should have made it for non-initiate and just, told the story a little bit better, taken a little bit time to set it up, and they haven't set it up well. And now, you got someone like me trying to explain what's going on. You know, that's not helping.
Mm,
I want to talk about how this show suffers in comparison to a show like Cowboy Bebop before we get out of here, because I recently started watching Cowboy Bebop, and it's so simple, but it's so good.
Mhm.
You know, it has style. It
mhm.
has a great soundtrack with the sort of the acid jazz noir soundtrack, which is fantastic. And then you have kind of this, you know, dangerous but light feel, you know, with these bounty hunters and stuff. Rock is you feel it, and then you have their adventures, you know, and you don't need to think too hard about it, you know. And I kind of wish maybe they'd hired some of the creators of the
Well,
maybe Netflix just has done it for so long they just do it better.
Netflix is literally, I mean, they've been doing it longer than Amazon, but they've only
Yeah.
been doing it since 2013. Let's not pretend like they've been around
Well, no,
that
but
long.
how long has How long has Amazon been developing shows?
5 or 6 years.
So yeah, I was going to
Not
say
only
2017, 2016.
Just a little bit less than Netflix.
Right.
But and both of those companies, by the way, have people in key creative spots that are
Sure.
long experienced industry veterans. I mean, Amazon hired Jennifer Salk, for God's sakes. She's been everywhere. She's done everything. And the next big get will be Emma Watts, who left 20th Century, what used to be Fox. She hasn't taken a job yet, but somebody's going to hire her. And again, she's been everywhere. She's done everything. So these companies, like, they're young, but they are run by people who know what they're doing. It's really hard. And it's kind of just, again, it's that thing of Cowboy Bebop is a relatively simple story. It's very character driven. It's very action oriented, and they let the world kind of just take care of itself. You get so much of the text
like you
texture of the world just from the way the characters move through it, the way they interact with different people.
But by interacting with the world, it shows itself to you.
And it really feels like in Wheel of Time, the characters are just isolated from everyone and everything.
Yep. They're not interacting with the world. To be honest. I mean, they're running from place to place. You know?
Which is why the scenes of, like, when the White Cloaks encounter somebody are so electric. It's because, okay, now you have two groups with different goals and objectives, and they're coming into conflict. Great. And then you'll have like an interaction like the Pouty Boy with the Monster Man was kind of clever and kind of funny and neat little interaction, but there's no conflict, there's no drama, there's no stakes. It's essentially like when you're playing a video game and an NPC is just telling you have arrived at this village, you can do this, this, and this here. Like there's nothing to that interaction that's compelling. So, you know, it's just kind of, I don't know. Those are really huge problems to fix. Like, it's just, it would mean the second season is going to have to be like a complete overhaul, essentially.
Yeah. Hoping
it's missing romance too, like you said.
Well, and it's a big problem that romance is coming between those two characters, but Daniel Henney and Rosamund Pike have way better chemistry than Daniel Henney and that other actress.
Agreed.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's just kind of a problem.
Unfortunate. Yep. Unfortunate. All right. Well, I said we wrap it up here. We've gone over by about 8 minutes. So we'll see next week. We got Rebecca from Reading the Pattern is going to come back with us. So
I will be so curious to hear how she's feeling about the show.
Yeah, I agree.
I hope we don't hurt her feelings too much.
I don't know that.
I don't think she cares.
I don't know that we will.
I can't imagine that this is making passionate fans of the books super happy either, because it really feels like, as an uninitiated person,
totally
to me, it feels like a dumbed down version of whatever this is supposed to be.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, exactly. Come back, Jeff Doyle. Thank you for all the great comments in the chat. Fantastic comments.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Really drove us into different places. All right, so we'll be back here same time next week, about 8:30, 8:45, which is when we were came on today, because I couldn't figure out the goddamn StreamYard glitch. But thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
See ya.